In October of 1992, Sega published Batman Returns for the Genesis. I had enjoyed the Tim Burton film from earlier that year, so I was really looking forward to a game based on that content. The previous Batman film had also given me a game I had loved to death on the Genesis, so I was really hoping for a more refined and expanded experience of that. Batman Returns was nothing of the kind. Developed by Malibu Interactive, it was again a side-scrolling action platformer that had Batman running, punching, and doing most of the things you expected. But man, did I hate the design of this one. Aside from enemies that could hit you well outside of your sprite, there was always stuff falling on your head, coming out of the ground, or swooping by to do you harm. The environment itself was a hazard, and you never got a second's peace because of it. This came at a time when Sega was making sure that their games were hard due to the game rental market, a practice that ruined many games. Right from the moment you take control, you are under siege, and it was absolutely fatiguing. Good game design sees the challenge escalate over time, giving you a chance to acclimate yourself to the content. But Batman Returns makes things tough by flooding the play area with things that damage you easily. Worse, your basic punch is nearly useless in a great many circumstances. This leaves you a dependence on the weapons, which unfortunately can be scarce at times. Contending with all this could have been tolerable if the hit detection wasn't so bad, but it's just awful. Some things can hit you half an inch outside your character, which just adds to the frustration. Your weapons are limited and often ineffective against bosses, so there's no fun in those either. The stage design is so bad, there were no less than 3 times in this game that I genuinely had no idea what to do. I had to die countless times, with limited continues mind you, just to understand where to go. Batman Returns was also one hell of an ugly game. Batman is supposed to be dark, but good lord is this a dithered mess. You get about 4 shades of purple across the entire screen, including Batman himself. And that music, oh man, the music. Here is Gems in all its farting glory. The funny thing is that publications actually loved this, giving it some very decent reviews. Not me, however. I despise it on every level, a game Sega should be ashamed of. It was nowhere near as good as Konami's Super Nintendo version, which was a beat-em-up that actually looked, sounded, and played great. When it was announced the Sega CD version was coming the following year, I wanted no part of it. The last thing I needed was more of this travesty with a new soundtrack. Released in March of 1993, I began seeing ads for Batman Returns for the Sega CD a bit before that. Instead of the same shitty game I had played before, it spoke about 3D action and had screenshots of third-person car combat. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but perhaps there was something more to this version after all. When I did get my hands on it, I was met with both the best and the worst of the Sega CD platform. My original fears of the cartridge being dumped with a CD soundtrack were confirmed. Sega had done just that. Same crappy graphics, same crappy gameplay. But Sega and Malibu Interactive had also done something you typically didn't see on the Sega CD. Instead of a bonus level here and there, they had actually created an entirely new combat racing game for this release. Even more impressive was that they took advantage of all that extra hardware in the unit. That's right, a game that finally showed off just what the Sega CD was capable of. The two games of Batman Returns can be completely separated in the options menu. You can keep them combined and play them together, or you can completely turn off one or the other. The driving segments aren't just some tacked-on afterthought like most bonus content for the Sega CD. There is a fully featured combat racing experience here, and believe it or not, it contains two distinct games itself. The first is the Batmobile, and it's fully loaded for battle. You get unlimited machine gun rounds and a set of missiles that can be replenished during the race. Basically, you must fight your way through a series of rounds that present you with a predetermined number of enemies to kill. Survive and you'll move on to the next round, get some life back, and fight on. The combat isn't just weapons based, you can use your Batmobile as a battering ram as well. You want to make sure you hit the other vehicles at an angle so you don't damage yourself. Enemies also have missiles, Molotov cocktails, flamethrowers, and other means of causing you harm. Keep moving, don't be afraid to slow down to avoid damage, and keep those machine guns firing and you'll do fine. Once past the scrub enemies, you'll need to face a larger vehicle that is much tougher to dispatch. You'll need to strategize a bit more, measuring your aggressiveness, and use those missiles wisely. Be aware that a time limit is in place as well, and you can lose quite easily by letting it run out. You also get a second vehicle from the movie to take for a spin, the Bat Ski Boat. These take place in the sewer and are far more obstacle-based than the driving sections. There's stuff to run into everywhere, and you'll need incredible timing to deal with it all. Pushing you along is the previously mentioned time limit. Go too slow negotiating the obstacles, and you'll lose anyway. Memorization here is the key, and you'll need to replay these sections numerous times to see the ending. I said earlier that I thought the side-scrolling sections were ugly, and they absolutely are. You couldn't have used the Genesis color palette any worse here, resulting in one of the worst looking games of that year. Luckily, the driving sections go a different route, and while much of it is still dark, the addition of a fully functional sprite scaling engine is nothing to sneeze at. Buildings, enemies, weapon fire, and debris all move along the screen in impressive detail. It isn't 60 frames per second arcade superscaler smooth, but for a home console engine, this was simply unheard of at the time. Unlike the limited scaling of the Super Nintendo's Mode 7, the road in Batman Returns could rise and fall. It could be uneven, bumpy, and the water stages could flow up and down as you'd expect. While the Sega CD was being hyped up before its release, these were the types of graphics I had been hoping for. Games that genuinely looked so much better than anything the Genesis could have done alone. This was at a time before the launch of the 3DO, Jaguar, or the introduction of mainstream polygons at home, so the feeling of 3D space in a title like this was an impressive and appealing addition. You didn't get graphics like these outside the arcade often, and when you did, certainly not as well done. Sega should have exploited this engine and released numerous games based around it. I know full motion video games have its fans, but for me, this right here is what the Sega CD should have been all about. Giving us game experiences you simply couldn't get on any other home system at the time. One of the improvements in the Sega CD version beyond the driving segments was the brand new soundtrack. Sega brought in Spencer Nielsen to do the honors, who completely reworked the feeling of every entry. This new music wasn't just for the new content either, it also replaced the gem stuff for the side-scrolling game. It's a major improvement all the way around and sounds so much better. I particularly like the rock-inspired stuff while you do battle in the Batmobile. It really adds to the excitement and hypes you up like crazy. There are a ton of good ones to share with you, but here are a few of my favorites. While I want to sing Batman Returns praises, there are of course numerous reasons why you may not enjoy this one. Because of the debatable quality of the side-scrolling stages and its availability on the vanilla Genesis, many of you will likely rely on the driving sections as the reason you play this version. I'm confident in my recommendation that it's a fun addition and well worth playing. However, it's tough. Damn tough. You'll need to play a number of times to get a feel for it, and it can quickly frustrate you. Some enemies can even kill you in seconds. This is especially true of the Bat Ski Boat stages. This is time-constrained, Twitch-based gameplay that will not tolerate many mistakes. There is a practice mode with unlimited continues, but you can't finish the game that way. To see the end, you'll need to push through this difficulty with only 3 continues, something that will chew up and shat out all but the most dedicated among you. With that said, I still love this one. While far from perfect, it managed to show off my Sega CD in ways few games had before or even after it. A large portion of the Sega CD library was either Genesis games with a few scaling bonus stages or full motion video based stuff. To see an engine like this finally take advantage of the chipset was satisfying and reason enough to own it. The side-scrolling levels still sucked and the game was hard as sin overall, but it was a showpiece title that made you proud to own Sega's often ridiculed CD add-on. So then, is the verdict a must-own? No, it's not. For fans of the Genesis version, you're fine owning just that one. Same gameplay, same graphics. For those wanting to see what the Sega CD could do with sprite and background scaling, this is definitely worth firing up on an emulator or FPGA device. It definitely had the hardware to do pseudo 3D on an impressive level, and had more games used this type of engine, it may have sold a tad better. Recommending that you run out and buy a complete copy is a hard sell, however. In recent years, the price has really gone up. The US version complete in box can be around $100 these days. While I like the game and have some great memories of it, that's just too much for what it offers. If you're content on owning just a disc-only option, you can get that for a lot cheaper. Sega CD ownership was a roller coaster ride with ups and downs. There were a lot of disappointments to be sure, but every so often, software like this really helped justify the purchase and your devotion. It was similar to the Saturn in that respect. When things went wrong, it could make for a disheartening experience, but when something went right, hot damn was it a heck of a time. That pretty much sums up Batman Returns, an imperfect showpiece on a system with tons of potential that could have and should have been so much better. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.